On Global TV News Prime, former head of state Abdulsalami Abubakar warns politicians against character assassination. In business, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission says cement industry indicates possible price manipulation in the market. And on the foreign scene, Hakinde Haklima wins second term for 60% of votes. And in sports, Real Madrid officially unveils Mourinho as coach ahead of 2026-27 season. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365, the Star Times channel 27 season free TV. Now the news in full. As politicians' activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general election, a former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, has advised politicians against character assassination, personal attacks and inflammatory rhetoric. Abdulsalami, who was represented by the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Martin Sluter Agwai, retired, gave the advice in Abuja at the signing of the National Peace Accord ahead of the official commencement of campaigns for presidential and National Assembly elections. Sadia Yakubu has the details.
The Peace Accord, organized by the National Peace Committee in partnership with the Kuka Center, seeks to commit political parties and candidates to peaceful, responsible and issue-based campaigns. The former head of state expressed concern over the growing tendency of political campaigns to abandon manifestos and policies for name-calling, insults and attacks on the character of opponents. He warned that such rhetoric could poison public discourse, inflame political tensions, and create an atmosphere capable of triggering intimidation and violence during the electoral process.
It is an accord that calls on political parties and candidates to compete fairly on the issue of ideas, policies, and programs.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Josh Amopitan, called on political parties and candidates to make issues, policies and programs the center of their campaigns ahead of the 2027 general elections. He said the National Peace Accord provides a framework for fair competition, respectful debate, peaceful mobilization, and the protection of voters and electoral institutions. He urged political actors to reject hate speech, incitement, misinformation, and narratives capable of triggering violence and undermining electoral integrity.
Today, signing of the first National Peace Accord therefore marks a critical milestone. We are exactly 5 months away from the 2027 general election.
The Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, who was represented by Umar Nadada, said the credibility and peaceful conduct of an election are not determined on election day alone, but depend largely on the conduct of political parties, candidates, supporters, and other stakeholders through the electoral process. The police chief therefore called for political campaigns to be a contest of ideas, policies, programs, and competing visions for the future of the country, rather than a platform for intolerance, incitement, ethnic polarization, or violence.
Nigerian Police Force recognizes that democracy requires rigorous political competition. We have no interest in determining who wins or loses an election. Our interest is in ensuring every Nigerian is able to participate in the democratic process.
Bishop Matthew Kuka urged political party leaders, presidential candidates, campaign councils and spokespersons to make the concern of Nigerians center of their campaigns, warning them to shun fake news, personal abuse and inflammatory statements.
The Peace Committee has continued to do extraordinarily good work. That much I can say. We were not set up, to monitor elections and make sure that elections are. We were set up to encourage Nigerians. And I want to just...
With the 2027 campaigns now set to commence, stakeholders are demanding a new standard of political engagement, one driven by ideas, accountability, and issues that matter to Nigerians. Sadia Yakubu, Global TV News.
The Federal Capital Territory has directed the immediate demolition of properties that have obstructed designated waterways in Maitama and other flood-prone areas of Abuja. The FCT Minister Nyesom Wike gave the directive after inspecting flood-affected areas in Maitama, where he blamed part of the flooding on building constructed on waterways and other violation of the Abuja Master Plan. Kike Lomo Okere has the details.
Flooding has become an increasingly reoccurring threat in Federal Capital Territory, with heavy rainfall repeatedly overwhelming drainage system, flooding roads, homes, and disrupting movement across the capital. Beyond the intensity of the rainfall, urban expansion, blocked waterways, indiscriminate waste disposal, and construction along natural drainage route has continued to worsen the problem. Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike says there will be no exemption in the enforcement exercise, warning that the status, wealth, or political influence of property owners will not stop the government from removing structures built on water channels. He ordered the FCT Development Control Department to begin the demolition immediately and ensure the exercise continued throughout Saturday, insisting that neither political activities nor the identity of property owners will interfere with the enforcement.
Now you have done your own by blocking the water channel and nothing has happened. Thank God the flood has come. He has drawn our attention to the place. Now something will happen. I'm going to bring those houses down. Any house that fell on the channel, water channel will go down.
According to the minister, government inspections reveals that some developers had blocked channels specifically designated for the passage of storm waters, leaving rainfall with fewer routes to flow and increasing the risk of flooding. Wike also identified blocked drainage system, indiscriminate dumping of refuse, and failure to properly deslate waterways as major human factors worsening the flood situation across the capital. He directed relevant FCT agencies to commence immediate deslating of identified drainage channels and called on residents and traders to stop turning waterways into dumping grounds. He also warns officials of the Development Control Department against delaying the exercise, directing them to act immediately against structures found on designated water channels.
Some of them are senators, some of them are big men. The next thing you will see campaign now, oh, why is he doing this during period of election? That is the next campaign you will see now. Stop him. Let us finish election. Whether there's election, there's no election, all those houses will go down.
While acknowledging the impact of climate change and unusual heavy rainfall, Wike insisted that natural factors were only part of the problem, stressing that human activities had significantly aggravated the flooding. The minister rejected claims that the planned demolitions were politically motivated because of the election season, maintaining that enforcement of the development regulations cannot be suspended for political consideration. Wike says the FCT administration will continue to enforce the Abuja Master Plan, protect waterways and green areas, and take decisive action against illegal development in an effort to tackle flooding and restore order to the nation's capital. Kike Lomo Okere, Global TV News.
A former Vice President and presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Atiku Abubakar, has called for a united grassroots movement to challenge bad leadership and mobilize Nigerians ahead of the 2027 presidential election. Atiku made the call when members of the Atiku Unity Movement, a grassroots support group canvassing support for the 2027 ambition, visited him in his office in Abuja. Ubong Usoro reports.
The Atiku Unity Movement is intensifying its grassroots mobilization as political activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections. Addressing members of the group, Atiku Abubakar urged Nigerians to unite in the pursuit of a better country and sustain efforts to bring about what he described as meaningful political change. He also encouraged members of the movement to strengthen their grassroots structures, assuring them that the movement will be integrated into the campaign structure.
That structure should be used effectively to mobilize voters to vote and protect the votes. So let me commend you for supplementing what is supposed to be actually the structure of the ADC. One very pleasant thing here is that also you have brought in legacy members of the party.
The chairman of the group, Honorable Francis Ebola, said the movement has integrated legacy members of the African Democratic Congress and other support groups. He said members will work assiduously for the success of Atiku Abubakar in the 2027 presidential elections.
This strategic meeting is particularly important because it provides members of this movement the opportunity to meet with you directly, share our perspectives, receive guidance, and strengthen the synergy between the movement, Your Excellency, and the wider team as we prepare for the task ahead.
Also speaking, the Media and Publicity Director of the movement, Tina Kenechukwu, said the group is firmly rooted in structures from the national level to the polling unit level. She added that the movement would continue to mobilize support for Atiku Abubakar's 2027 ambition.
Coordinate the local governments in their states. So they coordinate all the local governments in their states. And in the local government, they have their local government coordinators that now coordinate the wards and the polling units. So you can see how deep Atiku Unity movement is. Please, can you give us a round of applause?
The movement says its grassroots mobilization will continue across the country as political activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections. Ubong Usoro, Global TV News.
Nigeria is set to host global leaders in public relations, diplomacy, business, and academia as Abuja prepares for the 2026 World Public Relations Forum in November. The Nigerian Institute of Public Relations announced the plan in Abuja during an engagement with members of the diplomatic corps. Global TV Foreign Affairs correspondent reports. President and Chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations (NIPR) Council, Dr. Ike Naliaku, says the forum will give beyond professional networking, bringing together communication experts, policymakers, businesses and institutions to shape the future of responsible communication. Naliaku says the forum is expected to produce the Abuja Declaration on Responsible Communication, a document aimed at influencing global communication standards in the years ahead.
Why are we having this briefing? Why is this important to us? It is important to us because the diplomatic community in Nigeria is part of the public relations stakeholders. You are diplomats, and part of your engagements essentially is international relations. And we are in the business of building, managing, sustaining relationships.
Representing the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, the Ambassador of the Philippines to Nigeria, Mr. J. Melejo, commended the NIPR and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for engaging the diplomatic community ahead of the forum.
This as a reflection of the strong relations between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the countries that we represent in this country. At the same time, we look at it as a recognition by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Institute of Public Relations of the critical role of the members of the diplomatic community in Abuja.
The November Forum will also feature the World Public Relations Award, the launch of a special publication on responsible communication, and a culture showcase, including a jollof rice festival. For organizers, the event is an opportunity to showcase Nigeria's communication capacity and strengthen its voice in shaping the future of global public relations. Flooding continues to threaten communities across Nigeria, destroying property, disrupting livelihoods, and putting lives at risk, especially during the rainy season. While heavy rainfall remains a major trigger, experts say poor drainage, indiscriminate waste disposal, construction on waterways, and weak urban planning are turning heavy rains into recurring disaster. Zarau Nasir reports.
Across the country, heavy downpours are increasingly testing drainage systems, forcing water into homes, roads, and communities. The National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) identifies excessive rainfall, overflow rivers, and blocked drainage channels among the major causes of flooding. But experts say human activities are making the situation worse. Indiscriminate dumping of rubbish blocks waterways, while construction on floodplains and poor urban planning restrict the natural flow of water. Rapid urbanization is also reducing open spaces that absorb rainwater, while deforestation and environmental degradation increases surface runoff.
Excess rains. First and foremost, I want to know, is my drainage, are the drainage blocked? If the drainage are clean and clear, what about the water bodies, the pathways where the waters will go through? This is where planning comes in. People build on waterways. People build infrastructures on waterways where these waters are supposed to pass through. But if they are blocked, of course there will be flooding.
Experts say tackling the problem requires sustained investment in drainage infrastructure, regular desilting of channels, and strict enforcement of town planning regulations. Communities, they say, must also take responsibility by keeping drains and waterways free of waste.
We can prevent it, we can avoid it, we can stop it if it's manageably well that this infrastructure are put on ground, enforcement by government, by institutions, even by community to make sure people don't block waterways. And also people giving building plans and approval. That's, I'm talking about FCDA, for example, making sure that they don't give approvals to buildings on floodplains and also pull down buildings that are on floodplains. That's the only way we can, reduce or stop the incidence of flooding.
Experts say Nigeria must move beyond emergency response and prioritize prevention, preparedness, and stronger community participation. Zahra Nasir, Global TV News.
You're watching the live broadcast of Prime News Prime. News Prime continues after this with our forecast plus business, foreign, and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome. After episodes of rainfall in the past 24 hours, conditions are expected to be little calmer come Wednesday. However, a few areas could see some active weather. The morning hours will favor the northwestern part of the country, where we could see thunderstorms and rains likely in parts of the region, with activity extending into areas around the Federal Capital Territory, some parts of Kogi, Niger, the Federal Capital Territory, Kwara, Taraba, and a few areas along the coastal belt. Rainfall intensities will gradually ease off, particularly across the southern cities. By late evening, though, we could see a rain coverage increasing in a few locations. Overall, Wednesday looks less intense than Tuesday, with more manageable rainfall expected across much places within the region. So keep an eye on the sky and stay safe. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back from that break. Now in business, the Society of Women in Taxation has called on the federal government and other relevant authorities to consider the reality and economic contributions of women when formulating and implementing tax laws and policies. The call was made at a sensitization meeting on tax reform and policy held in Kano. Global TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports that as Nigeria implements its new tax reform framework, the women says their perspective must also be reflected in the process.
Taxation remains an important source of government revenue and a major instrument for funding public services and development. The Society of Women in Taxation brought together professionals and stakeholders in Kano to create awareness on recent tax reforms and strengthen women's participation in the nation's tax administration. The organization, which operates as an arm of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, was established to promote the interests of women in tax policy, law and practice, while also encouraging tax education and professional development. For the Kano chapter, the objective goes beyond educating its members. It is also about creating an enabling environment where women can acquire the knowledge and confidence needed to contribute meaningfully to discussions on taxation and policy formulation.
As coordinator, one of my priorities will therefore be to promote an environment where women in taxation can continue to learn, develop professionally, and network effectively.
With the country's tax system undergoing significant reforms, the society believes women should not only understand their tax obligations, but should also have a voice in shaping policies that affect their businesses, livelihoods, and economic activities. The society has previously advocated gender-responsive taxation, noting that women are significantly represented in the informal economy and may experience tax policies differently.
Tax revenue funds schools, courts, hospitals, and public infrastructure. Where that revenue administered accurately and fairly, government can meet its constitutional obligation.
The participant also stressed the importance of sustained unity, integrity, inclusiveness, and professional excellence among women in taxation profession. They believe stronger collaboration among female tax professionals will help improve public awareness, strengthen compliance, and provide better input into tax policy recommendations.
A lot of women are now the core entrepreneurs. Women do businesses at home, do businesses online. They do the small business and small scale business. So that is where our focus is going to be.
As Nigeria continues the implementation of its tax reforms, the Society of Women in Taxation says continuous sensitization, professional development, and strategic collaboration, as well as greater inclusion of women at every level of tax administration and policy development, will remain critical. From Kano, Idris Jibrin, Global Television News.
And on the foreign scene, a high-level United Nations delegation has visited Western Equatoria State to strengthen cooperation with authorities on peace-building, humanitarian access, and preparedness against the possible spread of Ebola from neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The delegation, led by Ramanathan Balakrishnan, Deputy Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General, held discussions with state officials as South Sudan intensified preventive measures amid the deadly Ebola outbreak reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Samuel Odi reports.
Western Equatoria shares a border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, placing the state at the front line of South Sudan's preparedness efforts as health authorities respond to Ebola outbreak in neighboring country. Officials say surveillance, public awareness, coordination among health agencies, and early detection mechanism are central to preventing a potential cross-border transmission. The United Nations delegation also used the visit to reaffirm its commitment to supporting peace and stability in Western Equatoria, as well as ensuring that humanitarian assistance reaches vulnerable communities safely and without disruption.
We take the partnership with the government ahead, particularly in the areas of support to sustaining the peace and humanitarian response. In particular, we discussed about the safety and security of the humanitarian response, and how do we ensure that the humanitarian response reaches those who are in need.
For South Sudanese authorities, the immediate priority is prevention, with the state government urging communities to remain vigilant and cooperate with health officials. Daniel, Governor, Western Equatorial State, says Ebola has not been detected in South Sudan, but the state cannot afford to wait until the virus crosses the border before taking action.
I've had a very fruitful meeting in the areas of our partnership and working together to consolidate the peace in Western Equatoria, and also to see how the humanitarian and development activities can move forward, especially the issue of Ebola has been deeply discussed. Ebola is not yet in South Sudan, but we must do everything in our preparedness to prevent Ebola from entering South Sudan.
The governor says the state will continue working closely with the United Nations and other partners to strengthen preparedness, protect communities, and maintain humanitarian access. As Ebola outbreak continues to pose a regional health threat, the United Nations and Western Equatoria authorities says prevention remains the priority, with vigilance, preparedness, and cross-border cooperation critical to keeping the virus out of South Sudan. Samuel Odi, Global TV News.
And in sport, Jose Mourinho has officially presented as Real Madrid head coach at a private ceremony in the boardroom of Real Madrid, marking his return to the club 13 years after his first spell between 2010 and 2013. According to the club's official website, President Florentino Perez welcomed the Portuguese coach, who signed a 3-year contract running until June 30, 2029. Mourinho received a replica of the stadium, a watch and jersey bearing his name. Honorary President Jose Mourinho Perez also attended the event. Speaking after the signing, Mourinho described his return as a deeper emotional experience than his first spell at the club between 2010 and 2013. As Global TV News Prime comes to an end, let's take a look at our top stories. As political activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections, a former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, has advised politicians against character assassination, personal attacks, and inflammatory rhetorics. And in business, we told you that the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission says preliminary findings from its investigation into the cement industry indicate possible price manipulation in the market. And on the foreign scene, we said celebrations have erupted across Zambia, particularly in the capital Lusaka, after President Hakainde Hichilema secured a second term in office with 60% of the votes cast in last week's presidential election. And in sports, Jose Mourinho was officially presented as Real Madrid's head coach at a private ceremony in the boardroom of Real Madrid, marking his return to the club 13 years after his first spell between 2010 and 2013. And that's it on News Prime. Here's a quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365, StarTimes channel 276, and Free TV. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thank you for watching.